1. West Memphis 3. The night air in Robin Hood Hills clung to the skin like a cold, wet shroud. Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Michelli Jr. trudged along the worn gravel driveway, the beam of their flashlights dancing over moss-covered stones and gnarled roots. They were just 3 teenagers, outsiders in a small southern town, drawn by whispered rumors of satanic ceremonies in the woods. But what they found there would transform their lives into a living hell. When the bodies of 8-year-old Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers were discovered, their pale faces frozen in terror beneath the briar and bramble, the community's fear erupted into hysteria. Rumors swirled of dark rituals, of pentagrams scrawled in blood, of midnight chants summoning ancient evils, and in that frenzied, red-lit pitch, the eyes of suspicion settled on Damian, Jason, and Jesse. From the moment the 3 boys were hauled into interrogation rooms, the tone was grim and accusatory. Under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, Jesse, with an IQ barely above his own age, was pressed for hours. His voice trembled as he described a scene he had never witnessed, a grotesque tableau of murder invoked by a belief in Satan. The tape recorder clicked and hummed, then fell silent on fabricated confessions. No physical evidence, no fingerprints, no fibers, no DNA linked them to the crime. But it didn't matter. In the court of public fear, perception was proof enough. Damian sat shackled in an orange jumpsuit, his pale face ashen beneath his dreadlocks. Jason's shoulders shook with silent anguish. Jesse's eyes darted, haunted by memories he could not distinguish from lies whispered to him by relentless interrogators. The prosecution paraded them as monsters, painting the rink of Robin Hood Hills as a desecrated altar. Neighbors who once waved hella now crossed themselves at their sight. As the trial unfolded, the details grew ever more macabre. The medical examiner's report spoke of extreme violence, yet the wounds on the boys' bodies received only a passing glance. Instead, the spotlight shone on rumors of occult symbols. Damian's taste in black clothing became proof of allegiance to evil. Jason's mild interest in horror films was twisted into a motive. Jesse's coarse confession hung over them like a guillotine's blade. Convicted in 1994, the trio was sentenced to a lifetime behind bars, with Damian condemned to death. Their cell walls became canvases for midnight scribbles, prayers, pleas, and pleas for mercy scrawled in desperation. Through the years, as they watched the seasons shift over prison yards, doubt seeped into the minds of investigators. Forensic scientists re-examined the scant evidence and found nothing to tie the boys to the murders. A single fiber, a lone strand of hair, all pointed away from them. In 2011, the so-called Satanists walked free under an Alford plea, a grim legal shortcut that let them reclaim their lives without conceding guilt. The real killer was never caught. Robin Hood Hills still listens for the screams that went unheard, and the ghosts of Steve, Michael, and Christopher linger in the shadows. A chilling reminder that when fear trumps reason, justice can shatter like glass. 2. Cameron Todd Willingham. On December 23, 1991, the small town of Corsicana, Texas, was gripped by a horror that no one could have imagined. Flames danced through the Willingham family home, illuminating the night sky with a hellish glow. Cameron Todd Willingham burst through burning doorways, but by the time he reached his daughters, Amber, Ashley, 2, and Carmen, 1, the fire had already claimed them. Their bodies lay twisted and blackened, their small arms frozen in terror. In the immediate aftermath, grief curdled into suspicion. Detectives combed through the wreckage, hunting for signs of arson. Investigators insisted they saw poor patterns on the floorboards, the telltale tracks of they pointed to melted synthetic fabrics and bizarre burn marks as proof of deliberate ignition. But those patterns would later be exposed as the natural result of a rapidly intensifying fire in a cramped wooden structure. At his trial, Willingham's face was gaunt, eyes hollow with grief that strangers mistook for guilt. Prosecutors painted him as a heartless father who had doused his own children in gasoline, then watched them burn. Neighbors who barely knew him sat on the jury, swayed by the unbearable image of a man killing his babies for profit. In 2004, Cameron Todd Willingham was injected with a lethal cocktail of chemicals and expelled from existence, even as a growing chorus of fire science experts began to cry fire. After the execution, the case took on a life of its own in the courts of public conscience. A 2009 New Yorker investigation revealed that the arson evidence had been based on decades-old myths, not empirical science. Pour patterns turned out to be artifacts of wood slumping, and char depth was misread. The man who died at 36 was not the monster the state portrayed. He was a grieving father, misled by outdated forensics. Texas-owned Forensic Science Commission quietly ruled that the original investigators had erred, but none could reverse the gurney's finality. Willingham's execution left a raw, festering wound in the American justice system. To this day, his ghost haunts the shadows of Texas death chambers. A specter of warning that even in the candlelit solemnity of state execution, the flame of truth can be strangled by the fumes of confirmation bias. 3. And Juan Rivera. In the early fall of 1992, 11-year-old Holly Staker vanished from her home in Waukegan, Illinois. Her body was found days later in a shallow pit, her clothing torn and stained. The town's breath caught in its throat. At the horror, parents locked their doors in fear of a predator who struck without warning. The police zeroed in on Juan Rivera, a 26-year-old laborer with a distant stare. He was hauled in for questioning as the weight of an entire community settled on his shoulders. In the cold confines of the interrogation room, officers blitzed him with leading questions. They demanded details he did not know, laughing when he fumbled. Exhausted and intimidated, Juan began to repeat fragments of the scenarios they suggested. Over the next 12 hours, in a marathon of coercive tactics, Juan babbled what the detectives wanted. The route he took to Holly's house, the brand of lube used, the place he hid the body. None of it was true. He was simply too terrified to withstand the questioning. His confession, obtained without an attorney present, became the linchpin of the prosecution's case. At trial, the courtroom felt like a crucible. The prosecutor brandished Juan's confession like a talisman. No DNA evidence linked him to the crime scene. The blood and fluids found on Harley's body did not match his. No eyewitness placed him near Harley's home. Yet the jury, gripped by outrage and a thirst for closure, convicted Rivera. Not once, but twice. A third jury deadlocked. He faced the death penalty. Juan spent more than a decade in Cook County Jail, his spirit battered by the clank of cell doors and the ceaseless echo of guards' footsteps. Throughout it all, he insisted on his innocence, penning letters and petitions that gathered dust in bureaucratic drawers. Meanwhile, the real perpetrator, whoever he was, remained free to prey on others. In 2004, the breakthrough came. DNA testing on semen recovered from Harley's body definitively excluded Juan. A judge vacated his conviction, and after nearly 12 years behind bars, Juan Rivera walked out a free man. But freedom came with a river of scars. The state paid him $20 million in compensation, a sum as cold and hollow as the bars that once caged him. Today, Juan's name still ripples through Waukegan's neighborhoods like a warning. His trial by fear, his sentence by suggestion, and his exoneration by science stand as a stark reminder. When due process drowns beneath the tide of public panic, the innocent can be swallowed whole. Each of these narratives highlights the terror of wrongful conviction, the grinding cruelty of being labeled a monster, the slow erosion of hope behind concrete walls, and the chilling realization that our justice system can itself become an instrument of horror.